inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. Hero Quest. Now with 2 new adventure packs, the legend grows.
Hi there, and welcome back to Not Your Mother's Hobbies. In today's painting video, we're going to be going over the Hero Quest tables and surfaces. So first up, I'm going to show the torture rack. That's not actually going to be in this video, but I want to show you that I started adding some little decals and stuff on here. You can see there I added a skull to it. The Hero Quest core set comes with some skulls and rats, and you can see here this table has a gray skull. That's just for my bits box. Here's one without it. And what do we got next? We've got the alchemy table. You can see all kinds of stuff there I added. I wanted to jazz mine up a bit with some skulls, some sand, and some basing stones. And we're going to be using those to make like little gold pieces and gemstones when we're painting. I also forgot to show you guys the altar. It's over in the back and the left there, but here's everything primed. There's the altar. It's got a bunch of skulls for my bits box and a knife on there too. We're going to start these off by doing our usual dry brush. So just like in the priming video, which again I'll link if you haven't seen it, we're just going to do a rough zenithal style dry brush. So a couple layers, building up that white highlight closer to the top, and just get everything covered with some contrasted lights and darks. Some people might call this a slap chop. Whatever you want to call it, that's what we're doing. And here you go. This is what it's going to look like, something like that. So here's what the table's done. And next up we've got our kind of altar, sacrificial altar, cultist altar. That's what that looks like. You can see some of the stuff I added on top. Lastly, we have the alchemy desk. Okay, so first things first, we're going to use our favorite snakebite leather for all of the wood on the table. We're just going to slap it on and cover all the wood surfaces on both of the tables. The one with the skull that I have and this empty one here. Just go all the way around, apply liberally, get it all covered, make some wood. Alright, next we have Basilicanum Gray, and I'm going to use this to block in all of the iron and steel and kind of dark metal or silver metal. I like to block it in so that when you're doing the metallics over top, they have something to blend into. It kind of can hide your mistakes. You can be a little sloppier, kind of like we did with the stone over top the doors in the last video, right? We kept a lot of that black in the recesses, and it allowed us to be a little quicker, a little dirtier, while still having a nice contrasted, bright, detailed door frame. So next we have Skeleton Horde. We're going to use this on our little bony guy. It's a little off screen there, but you get the gist. We're just going to slather it on top, completely cover it, get it in all those nooks and crannies. So when that's dry, we're going to go in with Wraithbone, and we're just going to highlight back up all the little bone parts. So all the little raised areas, you can dot and stipple and highlight that chrome dome. Alright, next we're going in with our Vallejo gunmetal. We're just going to do a dry brush over top the gray that we put down, and that'll give it a nice metallic sheen, kind of like a faux fusion of non-metallic metal, true metals. Here's what it looks like when that's done. Hopefully you can see what I mean. Alright, next we're going to do Chrome from Vallejo Model Air. We're going to do another dry brush. We're going to do the highlights. So just kind of the edges and just a little light dry brushing in the middle to pick out some highlights and pings. You don't have to go too heavy on this. It is just like a finishing touch. Alright, next up is the altar. I put a lot of extra stuff on this one, so get ready. We're going to start with snakebite leather, tried and true for all of our wood. While the whole bottom of this altar is wood, you'll see me painting it in sections, and that's just so that I can stick with the wood grain and kind of isolate things. When you're working with contrast paints, you want to work fast, because as it dries, if you go over it again, it's going to streak. So when you have a surface like this with clearly defined areas, it helps to stick to those areas and go piece by piece. So next up we have Nuln Oil, Citadel Shade. We're going to put this over top of all of the stone, all the stuff that we want to be a darker stone, which is going to be basically the top of the table. All the top of the table we're going to do with Nuln Oil. And that's going to just give a dark tint to the stone, as well as fill in those cracks and crevices and give us a lot more detail. Next up, Bacillum Calum Gray, and we're going to use that again for our metallic basing. So I have this knife that I put on here from my bits box, and that's going to be metallic, so I'm putting it on that knife blade. You probably won't have a knife, so you won't have to do this, but if in case you do, there you go. After that, we're going to use Guilliman Flesh, and we're going to use that to do blocking in of all the gold metallics. I like to use Guilliman Flesh because I like a kind of rosy gold. If you don't want that, maybe a good substitute would be Skeleton Horde or Seraphim Sepia, or any kind of sepia browny yellow shade or contrast thin ink paint would probably go better for that. But I like a rosy one, so I'm going to go with Guilliman Flesh for all of my blocking in of the gold metallics. So that's going to be the hilt of the knife, all of the candles, and then this bookmark in the middle of the demonic cultist book. Next we have Skeleton Horde, and that's going to be again for all of the bone. So just like before, slather that on, get a nice covered coat, and get those bones really saturated in there. We'll bring them back up just like we did before. So get them real thick and covered. Not too thick, just right. You can see I even did those skulls in the front, and we're also going to use Skeleton Horde for the pages of the book. Next we have Agrak's Earth Shade, another Citadel shade, and we're going to use this on the candles to give a different look from the bone. This will kind of give us that earthy beeswax look. Carroburg Crimson, we're going to use this to tint some of the, I guess you'd call it decoration or carving on top of the altar. But you can see there's like a carved design in the top of the altar that's multiple levels. We're going to do the very top level in this Carroburg Crimson, and that's just really going to separate it from everything around it. You can do 1 or 2 coats of this depending on how thick you do it or how dark and deep you like it. I think I did 1 thick coat because I didn't want to be bothered going back over it. Alright, so you can see that there's a second step, and we're going to use Athonian Camo Shade for the exact same thing, just on that second raised detailed carving step thing. So again, do 1 or 2 coats, or however many you want to get to deeper color on it, or even just 1 big thick coat to get it over with. Here you'll see that I actually went in and did 2 coats, and the second coat was a little blotchy to give it a little more texture. Maybe some age or some wear. Alright, next is the candle flames. Really simple, tiny little dots. We're going to do a Yandin yellow for those, or any other kind of yellow ink or speed paint equivalent. Remember, this is just what I have. You can use what you have. So Blood Angel's red next, and that's just going to be for the tassel on my knife. You probably won't have this, but if you have something that could use some color. We're also going to use it for the little gem on the hilt of my knife. And lastly, the book cover itself. So just be really careful and outline the outside of that book. So with everything based and blocked in, we're going back for our first midtone, and that is going to be Wraithbone. You can see I'm using it for the pages of the book. We're also going to use it to highlight all the raised surfaces of the bone, just like we did before with the skull on the table. So here I'm going in one direction, you can see, and that's to give a consistent and even look for that page. And then here you can see I'm doing the highlights for the skulls. We're also going to use it to highlight back up the candles. Now we're starting the gold. We're going to use Retributor Armor, and we're going to just go in not too clean, don't have to be too precise. We're just going to go over that Guilliman flesh blocking. If you can still see some of the Guilliman below, don't worry about that. We're going to shade over top of it and do some other stuff that'll blend it all in together in the end. So here we go. We're doing it on the bookmark, the candelabras, and my knife hilt. We're going to go back in with some gunmetal and bring in the midtones back. And just kind of go in roughly, dotting here and there. It is an old looking knife, so I don't have to be too precise. It'll give it a kind of rough, old looking texture. Nuln Oil gloss for our silver metallic shades. And then Reichland Flesh Shade Gloss for our gold metallic shades. Again, I like to use the gloss version for my metallics because I find that it can peek through your varnish sometimes, or even create a satin finish on those areas and differentiate it a little bit more from the more matte, flatter areas that aren't treated with the gloss shade. Next, we're going to highlight up with Vallejo Model Air's Chrome. And we're going to use that to just do some highlights on not just the silver metallics, but the gold as well. So you can see there I did the sharp edge of the blade, some little pinpricks on the back end where the teeth are. Here I'm doing some little textured stripes and dots on the bookmark, and some little rim lights on the candelabras. Now you could stop right there, but I got something special to add. I'm going to use a Gundam marker and do a little secret technique here, a little cheat code. We're going to use this Gundam marker to draw directly on the book. I use Gundam markers for dotting I's. I use them for scripture on books and, Black Templar scrolls and stuff. It's super handy and gives you like a lot of control in what you're doing. So here you can see I'm just drawing a big fancy A, and then I'm doing a varying pattern of dashes, dots, and wiggles to represent letters. It's all just a bunch of gibberish lines. Dashes, dots, and wiggles. Just add little spaces in between, little gaps, and it should look roughly like calligraphy words. Alright, on the other page, I'm going to be just drawing a weird picture. It's a cultist altar kind of thing, so I'm drawing like a weird demon guy. Just take your time, have fun, doesn't have to be perfect. I kind of had no image in mind and was just kind of going with the flow, whatever came up. Just use your imagination and have fun. Now here I'm doing some little filigree on the edges by just doing some little wiggles, little 90-degree corner wiggles, and they end up looking like filigree design on the edges of the book. Okay, lastly, you can see I colored in my little demon guy. I just took some Meandin yellow. You can take whatever color you want, and I'm just using it to liven up my little picture. You can see I also have some Wraithbone, and I'm using that to add in some extra details on my little drawing here. Like some eyes and touching up his little claws. And then also adding some extra touch up on that A. Make it look a little more like an A. Here we go, we're going to do that gem, add some more detail. We have Abaddon Black. We're just going to put this on 1/2 of that gemstone. Not even 1/2, you could say like 1/3 slanted. It's a little tough to see, but I hope you can understand my meaning. And then we take any kind of white. I don't have a white label here. It's just craft paint. Real cheap and easy. And we're just going to do a tiny dot on the opposite end of the black and one tiny dot in the black. There you go. Little gemstone. Reflected refractions. Lastly, for that gemstone, when everything's all matte varnished up, just go back in with a gloss varnish. I'm using Art Coat here, and that'll make it shine. Alright, back to that snakebite leather, get all that wood done! So you'll notice that the wood on this alchemy desk is everything below the top surface. Once again, we have a top surface that is made out of stone, so we're going to do all of this wood is the legs and shelving on the bottom, and then of course these drawers and little ledge on the top. So just paint in and around everything, and yours might not have all the extra bits and bobs that I added on top, like these little stones. So you might have an easier time going in there, but just take your time, you'll get it done. Alright, we're going to do Nuln Oil again for the stone desktop. And that's just going to add some added contrast and tint it a little bit closer to a rocky stone color. And you'll notice that I am avoiding, there's like a little work mat on top of that surface. I'm just avoiding that. Guilliman Flesh. We're going to do this for all of the gold stuff. We are doing the gold blocking again. Anything that is gold is going to get Guilliman Flesh. So you can see all these little sand pieces. That's going to be gold. Like little nuggets. We're also going to get this little amulet down here. We're also going to get all the little shelf handles and the drawer knobs on the front. So don't forget those. We're going to use Basilicanum Gray for this little weight scale thing. And just cover the post and the platform and the dishes. Bringing back Skeleton Horde, we're going to do it first off for all this paper. All the papers and documents and stuff, we're going to give a little coating of Skeleton Horde, as well as all the bones and skulls and stuff that we've added in there. If you don't have those bones and skulls added, don't worry about it, just get these papers then. We're going to use Black Templar, another contrast paint, for this little ink pot here. I'm being overly careful on the sides of this, but considering that the top can just be ink as well, it can all be the same kind of color, you don't really need to. Just be careful on the bottom. Now next up, we're going to do all these little bits and bobs, and we have tons of colors to use. So use them all. You don't have to use what I'm using, but here's what I got. Volupus Pink, Talisar Blue, Orc Flesh, Yandin Yellow. Just get all your colors out and use them for everything we're going to do now. We're doing those bottles. We're doing those extra gems I added. It's going to be a smorgasbord of color up in here. So first we've got the Blood Angels Red. And we're going to use that for the weight scale ticker. Here I'm picking out one of these gems to be red as well. I think I counted them up at the time. I had enough gems to do one gem of each color, and that's what I tried to do. Same with the potions. There's very little overlap. So I just picked one, started painting it. Moved on to the next one, and so forth. Rinse and repeat with all your colors. And here you go. This is what it's going to look like when it's all based up. Super mega colorful. We're going to take some Agrax Earthshade. And this is going to be for this Velum map kind of thing. I got the impression it was kind of a stretched hide or something like that. So I went with this earthy tone. It's also going to differentiate it, just like those candles earlier, from the paper right next to it. Also going to use it for the top corks of the bottles. Here we go, first coat of the gold. We're going in with Retributor Armor and just dotting on, going over, brushing over all of our Gulliman Flesh Shade blocked in gold spots. And like I said, don't forget those little doorknobs on the front, because I did. That's okay. Here it's easy enough to just put that Retributor Gold on top and no one will be the wiser. Now here, I don't have a paint label because we're just using regular old craft paint. Get any white you got and dot it on the edges of your stones, and it hopefully will look like a shiny gemstone. At least that's what I was going for. I thought I kind of achieved that. So any white you got, we're going to do little highlights and all the gemstones just along the hard edge surfaces. We're also going to take that white and we're going to make like a shiny ping highlight on all of these glass surfaces. So the ink bottle, those potion bottles in the back, that's all going to be like a very white highlight on those. I guess like non-metallic metal, but in this case it's like non-metallic glass and ceramics. For our next highlight mid-tone combo, we're going in with Wraithbone. We're going to use that for the stoppers and corks, as well as any of the bone stuff and the paper like usual. Now for the paper, again, just like that cultist book, I want to point out that I'm trying to keep my paint strokes in one direction. Keep it consistent, smooth, and flat. I hope you can see there that I'm not painting over the entire paper flat like that. You can see still there's parts where the contrast paint pooled in, and I want to keep that as depth and detail. Here you can see that we're doing the vellum, or that map material, and I'm doing like a stippling rough technique because I want to keep that texture that's there. I don't want to cover the whole thing. I do want to highlight it up, but I want to keep that texture. Like before, we're using Reichland Flesh Shade Gloss to go over and shade all of the gold spots. And Retributor Armor again for mid-toning back up. Finishing touches on that gold, we're going in with chrome again, and we're doing just the little highlight pings. So pings on those little doorknobs, pings on this amulet, pings on the handles, pings on all the little gold nuggets. I think you get the point. It's Highlight City up in here. Chrome is the mayor. It's secret weapon time. We're coming back with that Gundam marker. We got a lot of paper here, so why not use it? Start writing some little diagrams and stuff here on this alchemy table. Now I start with a drawing, so why don't you take a moment, pause that video, see if you can guess what I'm going to draw. If you guessed a bubbling potion, then give yourself a double thumbs up because you got it. And then of course some little squiggly writing next to it. That's how you know what's in it. You gotta have a checklist. And another right angle filigree. And there's just enough room that we can get some writing on the pages behind it still. Alright, Mantis Warrior is green, just like that cult book. We're using it to add some extra detail and oomph to the pages that we just wrote on. Abaddon black for that gem. We're just filling in that top third of the gemstone. Back in there with the cheapo crappy craft paint white. Dot in the bottom. Dot in the top, and you got your refractions. And to make it pop after that matte varnish, use Ard Coat on all the gemstones, the rough crystals and all that. Really make them stand out as something other than a rock. You can also use this on all the glass bottles and containers, just like I'm doing here. There you have it. That is all of the tables and surfaces. So let's check them all out and see how we've done. Here we've got the table, just normal regular table. You can really see the mix of non-metallic metal, metallic metal. Really gives it a kind of interesting look. You see the gray underneath, you see the shiny on top. I think it's a cool mix. Highly recommend you give that a shot if you haven't already. Alright, let's check out the demon altar. You can see the bottom I didn't even bother with. You're only ever going to see the stuff on top. That's the stuff that's important. And adding in all the extra skulls and knives and stuff, I think really made this piece stand out than it normally would from the core box. I highly recommend you guys add stuff to yours and really make them your own. Let's check out that alchemy desk. Something fun to note that you might actually be able to see is with that scale, it's crooked, and I didn't bother to try to straighten it out with the warm water treatment. Instead, I used the stuff on top to give a sense that it was being weighed down on one side. And there you have it. That's how you do all the tables and surfaces in HeroQuest. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the new HeroQuest furniture. Do you think the new sculpts are cool? Do you like the old paper, cardboard, plastic combination of the old stuff better? How are you going to be painting up your furniture? Are you going to add little bits and bobs and doodads like I did? You're going to keep them all raw and basic? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by clicking that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't done it yet, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification. See you in the next video. Bye bye!